activity of vascular cambium. The active vascular cambium ring may cut off new cells on both sides, that is towards the inner and towards the outer side. When the vascular cambium ring cuts new cells towards the inner side, it is called a secondary xylem, whereas towards the outer side, it is called a secondary phloem. If we consider this is a portion of cambium. It's a portion of cambium, and this cambium is active and it may cut off new cells towards inner side. It may cut off new cells towards inner side. So these are the secondary xylem, whereas it may cut towards outside also. So it may cut outside also. This is called secondary phloem. Secondary phloem. So when the cambium is active, it may cut off new cells towards inside, is called secondary xylem. It may cut off new cells towards outside, is called secondary phloem. At the places, cambium forms some narrow horizontal band of parenchyma which passes through the secondary phloem and secondary xylem. These are called rays. These are called rays. So, through the secondary xylem and secondary phloem, a parenchymatous horizontal band is passing. Parenchymatous horizontal band. Horizontal band of parenchyma cells is passing through the secondary xylem and secondary phloem is called as ray cells. Called as ray cells. Due to the continued formation of secondary xylem and phloem, so the cambium may continually cut off new cells towards inside and outside, which form secondary xylem and phloem. Due to this continuous formation, both primary xylem and phloem gets gradually crushed. So the primary xylem and primary phloem may gradually crushed off. So this is simply the activity of cambium, vascular cambium, formation of secondary xylem, secondary phloem, and formation of ray cells, and gradually disappearance of the primary xylem and primary phloem. Now we are going to more detail about the secondary xylem. So secondary vascular tissues are of two types: secondary xylem and secondary phloem. First one, secondary xylem. Secondary xylem is nothing but wood. Secondary xylem is nothing but wood. Okay? It is formed by relatively complex meristem. Secondary xylem or wood is formed by relatively complex meristem that consists of vertically elongated fusiform initials and horizontally elongated ray cells. So the secondary xylem or wood is formed of, secondary xylem and secondary wood is formed of vertically elongated fusiform initials and horizontally elongated ray initials. Never confuse about ray initials and ray cells. So secondary xylem is formed of fusiform initials as well as ray initials. The axial system consists of vertical files of tertiary elements, fibers and wood parenchyma. So, the axial system of secondary xylem. The axial system of secondary xylem consists of tertiary elements, vessels, parenchyma, vessels and fibers and parenchyma. These are the elements that is found in the axial system of secondary xylem. Whereas radial system consists of only a row of parenchyma. Radial system consists of only parenchyma. So the axial system of secondary xylem consists of tertiary elements, vessels and fibers and wood parenchyma, whereas the radial system consists of only a row of parenchyma cells. And the secondary xylem may varies with species to species due to the relative distribution of the different cell types. So, with relation to the distribution and arrangement of these cell types, the secondary xylem may varies with species to species. The secondary xylem is of two types. Secondary xylem or wood, we can call it as wood. So which help for you to study. Wood or secondary xylem is of two types, that is non-porous wood and porous wood. Porous wood and non-porous wood. Simply hardwood and softwood. Simply hardwood and softwood. Okay. So, if you look what is hardwood or porous wood, in dicot wood having vessels is called porous wood, whereas blank vessels is called non-porous wood. So, hardwood have vessels, dicots having vessels are called porous or hardwood, and those have or those lack the vessels are called softwood or non-porous wood. Example of porous wood is Morus rubra, whereas non-porous wood is Pinus, that is usually gymnosperm. So, the hardwood is usually belongs to dicot plants. Hardwood is usually belongs to dicot plants, whereas the softwood is usually belongs to gymnosperms. So, these are about porous wood and non-porous wood. Now we are going to study what are annual rings. What are annual rings? What are annual rings? The activity of vascular cambium is under control of many physiological and environmental factors. We know that in a plant all the activities are under a control of physiological and environmental factors. So, in temperate regions, the climatic conditions are not uniform throughout the year. Yes, it may be a rainy season, monsoon, autumn, spring, etc. So, the climatic conditions may vary throughout the year. In spring season, cambium is very active and produce a large number of ciliary elements having vessels and tracheids with wide lumen. This type of wood or during this season, the wood that is formed is called as spring wood. Spring season, the wood formed in spring season is called spring wood. Whereas the wood that is formed during autumn season is called autumn wood. Is called autumn wood. So, what is the difference between spring wood and autumn wood? First one, the spring wood is formed during spring season, whereas autumn wood is formed during autumn season. And in spring wood, the cambial activity is very active, whereas in autumn wood, the cambial activity is very less compared to spring wood. Then, in spring wood, the number of xylem elements are large, whereas in autumn wood, the number of xylem elements are fewer. Whereas in spring wood, the xylem vessels and tracheids have wider lumen, whereas in autumn wood, the xylem vessels and tracheids have narrow lumen. And the wood is more darker in autumn wood, whereas the wood is more lighter in color in spring wood. We can look detail the difference between spring and autumn wood. Spring, autumn wood. Okay. First one, the cambial activity is faster. So, fast cambial activity. Here the cambial activity is slow cambial activity. And it has large ciliary elements, whereas in autumn it has low ciliary elements. And in spring wood it has a wide lumen. The xylem vessels and tracheids have a wider lumen, whereas in autumn wood, the xylem and tracheids and vessels have a very narrow lumen. And also spring wood, the wood is more light in color and also lower density. Whereas compared to spring, the autumn wood is dark and heavy density. So, these are the difference between spring wood versus autumn wood. So, the annual rings. What is annual rings? The annual rings denote the combination of early wood and late wood, and the rings become evident to our eye due to high density of late wood. So, annual rings are called as growth rings. Annual ring also called as growth ring. So, it is the combination of early wood versus late wood and the ring that is evident to our eye. But we should remember that all growth rings are not annual. All growth rings are not annual. So, annual rings are called as growth ring, but all growth rings are not annual. In some trees, more than one growth ring is formed within a year due to climatic change. So, all growth rings are not annual. Then, the additional growth rings may develop within a year. So, sometimes some adverse natural calamities like drought, frost, defoliation, flood, some mechanical injuries, some biotic factors may affect the middle of the growing season of those plants. In these calamities, additional growth rings are developed in the plant as a result of these calamities. So, these growth rings are formed in those plants are called as pseudo or false annual rings. Pseudo or false annual rings. Because why they are called as false annual rings? It is due to some adverse climatic condition. So this is not naturally occurring annual rings. Due to some adverse climatic conditions, the plant is forced to form a ring structure. Forced to form a annual ring. These type of rings are called pseudo rings or false annual rings. Each annual ring corresponds to 1 year growth, and on the basis of these rings, we can calculate the age of particular plant or tree. So, each annual ring is correspond to the growth of 1 year. So, by calculating the annual ring, we can assume the age of that particular plant or tree, particular tree. Okay. So, the determination of the age of a particular tree by counting the annual ring is called as the dendrochronology. So, what is dendrochronology? By find out the age of particular or age of trees by counting the annual rings of that tree is called the dendrochronology. The branch of dendrochronology concerned with constructing record of past climatic and climatic event by analysis of tree growth characters, especially using growth rings, are called dendroclimatology. So, dendroclimatology. So, what is dendroclimatology? Dendroclimatology is a branch of dendrochronology. By using or by analyzing the growth ring of trees, they are calculating or studying the climate and climatic events that happen on the past years. Okay, on the past years. Those type of study are called dendroclimatology. So these are about the annual rings. Now we can discuss about based on the diameter of xylem vessels. So diameter of xylem vessels, there are two types of angiospermic wood. Okay, based on the diameter of xylem vessels. Based on diameter of xylem vessels, the angiospermic wood are of two types. First one, diffuse porous wood and ring porous wood. So, diffuse porous wood and ring porous wood. So, based on the diameter of xylem vessels, the angiospermic dipole wood or angiospermic wood are of two types. First one, diffuse porous wood. Second one, ring porous wood. What are diffuse porous wood? We can examine the difference between diffuse porous wood and ring porous wood. Okay, difference between diffuse porous wood and ring porous wood. Diffuse porous wood whereas ring porous wood. Diffuse porous and ring porous wood. porous wood is formed where the climatic conditions are uniform, whereas ring porous wood are formed where the climatic conditions are not uniform. So here the climatic conditions are uniform. Climatic conditions are uniform, whereas in ring porous the climatic conditions are non-uniform. Okay, the wood that is formed in normal climatic conditions are called diffuse porous, whereas in non-uniform climatic condition it is called as ring porous. The vessels of diffuse porous wood are more or less equal in diameter in any annual ring. If we consider the annual ring of diffuse porous wood, the diameter of xylem vessels are more or less equal in all annual rings. So the diameter of annual ring are equal in almost all annual rings of diffuse porous wood, whereas in ring porous wood the diameter of the xylem vessels are wider and narrow within any ring. That is, it is not equal. So the diameter may be wider. So the diameter may be wider or thin. So the diameter may be wider or thin, or narrow. Wider or thin or narrow in ring porous wood, whereas the diameter of the annual ring of xylem vessels are equal almost in all annual rings in diffuse porous wood. If we look, the vessels are uniformly distributed throughout the wood, whereas the vessels are not uniformly distributed throughout the wood. So the vessels are uniformly distributed. Uniformly distributed vessels, whereas non-uniformly distributed vessels in ring porous wood. So these are the main difference of diffuse porous wood whereas ring porous wood. So diffuse porous woods are formed with uniform climatic condition, whereas there is a non-uniform climatic condition, ring porous wood are formed, and the diameter of xylem vessels are equal in all annual rings, whereas the diameter of xylem vessels can be wider or narrow in the annual rings. And the xylem vessels are uniformly distributed in diffuse porous, whereas the xylem vessels are non-uniformly distributed in the ring porous wood. So these are the difference between diffuse porous wood and ring porous wood. Now we can discuss about tie losses. What are tie losses? In previous class I already said about what are tie losses. Again I am going to say what are tie losses. In many dicot plants, the lumen of xylem vessel is blocked by many balloon-like ingrowths from the neighboring parenchyma cells. These balloon-like ingrowths are called as tie losses. Okay, if we consider this is a xylem vessel. Okay, these are parenchyma cells. These are parenchyma cells. Okay, so a balloon-like ingrowth. These balloon-like ingrowth are called as tie losses. So these may affect the conductive system of the xylem. So it may prevent the conduction of water. So tyloses are balloon-like structure or balloon-like inroads from the parenchyma of the xylem vessels. So the balloon-like structures are formed inside the lumen of the xylem vessels from the parenchyma of the xylem vessels. These are called as tyloses. Usually these structures are found in the secondary xylem vessels, so that it lost their function, that is hardwood. So it prevents the conduction of water, thereby it lost the wood. It increases the durability of the wood, that is hardwood. In fully developed tyloses, some starch crystals, resins, gums, oils, tannins or colored substance are formed. So inside these tyloses, some crystals, starch, oil, tannins, gums, etc. are formed. That's why if you see some trees are producing or secreting some gums, tannins, something towards the outside. It is from the tyloses.